It all started with a whisper, a story told by a child at the market one late afternoon. The tale was of a circus like no other, a place where the performers were not humans, but animals, specifically white mice. The child, her wide eyes gleaming with excitement, spoke of the circus's incredible feats. She described the tiny acrobats who swung from ropes, the ballerinas who danced on their tiny toes, and the daring tightrope walkers who balanced on threads thinner than a hair. The story seemed so outlandish, so impossible that at first people just smiled and patted her head, dismissing it as a child's imagination running wild. But the tale stuck with him. Harlan, a man of reason, thought little of it at first. He was practical and logical, with no time for whimsy. His days were spent managing his family's bakery, his hands worn from kneading dough and carrying baskets of bread to customers. But every time the wind blew through the trees or the bells at the market rang, his mind would return to the idea of the White Mouse Circus. The name was so peculiar, so strange, that it planted a seed of curiosity that grew slowly, quietly, until it was too much to ignore. One evening, long after the bakery had closed, Harlan found himself walking down a quiet street, away from the busy part of town. The streetlights flickered overhead, casting long shadows across the cobblestones. He passed by the old theater, which had been closed for years, its once bright marquee now rusted and forgotten. But as he walked past, something caught his eye, a small poster pinned to the wall. It was faded and torn, but there was no mistaking the words written in bold red letters. The White Mouse Circus, one night only. His heart skipped a beat. The circus was real. He stared at the poster, his pulse quickening. He had to go. He didn't know why, but he knew he couldn't ignore it. Something told him that tonight, the circus would answer the question that had been gnawing at him for weeks. The performance was held in an old, forgotten part of the town, far from the main square. Harlan arrived at the tent just as the last traces of daylight were disappearing. The entrance was hidden in shadows, the heavy canvas of the tent barely illuminated by the flickering lanterns outside. There were no lines, no crowds of excited families like he had imagined. Just a small gathering of curious onlookers, their faces filled with wonder and skepticism. Harlan paid for his ticket and stepped inside. The air inside the tent was warm, thick with the smell of popcorn and something faintly sweet. The audience was sparse, seated on wooden benches that creaked under the weight of the few who had dared to come. The atmosphere was electric, charged with an energy that Harlan couldn't quite explain. The lights dimmed, and a hush fell over the crowd. A figure stepped onto the stage, a woman draped in glittering silver fabric. Her smile was mysterious, almost too perfect, and her eyes gleamed in the low light. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome," she announced in a voice that rang clear through the tent. "Tonight, you will witness wonders beyond your wildest dreams. Tonight, you will see what no human eye has ever seen before. The White Mouse Circus." Harlan's breath caught in his throat as he watched her gesture to the far side of the stage. And there they were, tiny, graceful white mice, dressed in miniature costumes, scurrying across the stage with startling precision. They moved like a well-rehearsed troupe, performing tricks and stunts that Harlan could hardly believe. One mouse did flips through hoops, while another walked a tiny tightrope, its paws moving with delicate grace. The audience gasped, their faces lit with astonishment, and Harlan couldn't tear his eyes away from the stage. The performance went on for what felt like hours. There were acrobat mice soaring through the air on miniature trapeze, a mouse orchestra playing tiny instruments, and even a mouse clown who tumbled and juggled with delightful antics. Harlan watched in awe as each act grew more fantastical, more magical than the last. The mice were more than performers. They were artists, creating beauty in every move. But it wasn't just the tricks that captivated him. It was the atmosphere. The sense of magic in the air, something that made Harlan feel as if he were witnessing a secret, something forbidden. As the show neared its end, the ringmaster stepped forward again, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "And now," she said, "the greatest act of all." The lights dimmed further, and the crowd held its breath. A hush fell over the tent, as though everyone knew that something extraordinary was about to happen. The ringmaster gestured toward the center of the stage, and a soft, eerie music began to play. Then, from the shadows, a larger figure emerged, a mouse unlike the others. It was twice the size of the rest, its fur shimmering with an almost supernatural glow. It walked with a regal air, its eyes gleaming with intelligence. The audience gasped in awe as the great mouse performed a series of movements so elegant that it seemed to defy nature. It danced with the grace of a ballerina, its tiny paws moving with such fluidity that Harlan could hardly believe what he was seeing. It twirled, leapt, and pirouetted in a display that took his breath away. The performance ended with the great mouse bowing to the audience, and the crowd erupted into applause, their cheers filling the tent. Harlan sat stunned, his mind reeling from the experience. He had come looking for an answer, and in the magic of the White Mouse Circus, he had found something beyond his wildest expectations. After the show, Harlan lingered near the back of the tent, unable to leave. He watched as the mice were carefully taken backstage, their tiny paws tapping softly against the floor. He was drawn to them, unable to shake the feeling that there was something more to this circus, something deeper than just the spectacle of it all. As he stood there, lost in thought, a soft voice called to him. "You're still here?" Harlan turned and saw the ringmaster standing behind him, her eyes bright with an understanding he couldn't quite place. I don't know why I stayed," Harlan admitted, his voice low. "There's something about this place, something magical." The ringmaster smiled, a knowing smile. "The circus does that to people," she said, "but you should leave soon. This isn't a place for outsiders to stay too long." "Why?" Harlan asked, his curiosity getting the better of him. The ringmaster's smile faded slightly, and she stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Because the White Mouse Circus isn't just a show, it's a way of life, a secret passed down through generations, and if you stay too long, you might find that it's not so easy to leave." Harlan stared at her, his mind swirling with questions, but before he could ask more, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the backstage area. Harlan left the tent that night with more questions than answers, the magic of the circus still fresh in his mind. As he made his way back home, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had stumbled onto something far more mysterious than he had ever imagined. The White Mouse Circus was more than just a performance. It was a world unto itself, a secret hidden in plain sight.